Okay, so very happy Monday to everybody. It's time for the Monday webinar. This is where we talk about basically what I'm looking at going into this coming week. And some of the setups that I think will be interesting. We're kind of in that pre-summer activity, and I expect trends to continue, which is important and fun and exciting. Lots of good trades to be made. Yeah, we're trying, Tom. Have a little fun in the warm California sun. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. So yeah, we're having a good one out here, and I'm glad to be back with everybody. It feels like it was kind of a long feeling weekend, so I'm happy to be back to look at these charts and see what kind of pre-summer activity we can continue on with. Hi Linda, great to have you with us. And welcome to everybody. Okay, so as a reminder, for those of you that would like to see how we trade this stuff in more depth and detail, feel free to get a 5-day free trial to the live trade group at daytradersfx.com/join. You can get set up with a free trial there. We'd love to have you. And I think you'll find it enjoyable. It's a good group of people that we trade with. We're all kind of like family. We've all known each other and been around for quite a while, so it's nice to always have new people come and join us. And so, yeah, you can get set up right there. Let's get right into the nitty-gritty and the business of it all. First off, one thing to say, I know we have several visitors here, and most of you guys will not have gotten the email yet. My trade manager that I've talked about so much over the last little while has finally become available, and I've seen that we've had quite a few purchases since I sent the email out a couple of hours ago. It is a very fantastic program. We are going to have a live training webinar. We're going to do probably 2 of these this week and probably 2 next week. Because it's going to be just a big deal. It's going to be awesome. So if you haven't received an email yet, you will receive an email about it eventually. I'm sharing it with the group only to kind of start off because I want to make sure we get enough support for everybody and that nobody's left unattended, and then I'll make it available to more of the general public. But there's kind of an early release that has happened, and those that have received the email will get more information about when our next training is going to be. But just as a rule of thumb, I'll mention it right now. It'll be tomorrow morning, just after our morning session. So we're going to talk about how to use this program. It is so awesome. But as a heads up, for those that just have regular U.S. accounts that are unable to hedge and have to worry about FIFO, it's a really excellent program for managing your trades. For those that have accounts that do allow hedging and don't restrict with FIFO, it is much more than an amazing program to help manage trades. It's a profit-producing machine that that when used properly can really essentially eliminate losses. And so if that doesn't sound very interesting, then I don't know what will, because it's a great little program. So we'll have lots and lots of information about that, lots in the training, and that is all coming. So for those, again, that have not received the email and the link to purchase it, that is coming in the coming days. We've got kind of an early bird deal going with group members, and we'll go from there. So it's going to be very exciting. I'll have lots to report to everybody in the coming days about all of that. But the trade manager is fantastic, and I think we're all going to love it. Okay. As far as what we have in the works here today and this week, we've got quite a bit of news this week. You can see it's a pretty heavy week. Sometimes when we have these like ridiculous amounts of news announcements where there's just like 10 a day every day, it can kind of do an interesting number on the markets. You know, there's a spike up and then it's followed with a spike down because of good news, and then some bad news, and then some good news and some bad news. And sometimes depending on the gravity of the announcements, markets can kind of go a little bit sideways. But I think we've got some pretty important news that should kind of help these directions continue on. First of all, as far as the rest of today goes, we've pretty much cleared all of that. Hi, Elvin. Nice to see you. But going into Tuesday, we've got manufacturing numbers for the UK. We've got some Aussie news as well. Some New Zealand news is coming up shortly thereafter. Chinese, European news. There's some good stuff there. Wednesday, we've got employment numbers for the UK, which is a big mover. We've got the Bank of England, Governor Carney is speaking. That's always a wild ride. There's never, I can't think of a time that Carney spoke and the markets didn't go totally bonkers, berserk, nuts. So just be ready for that. That's coming on all the pound pairs. And we've got some good stuff to say about these pound pairs as well. Some good trades that I think are going to play out nicely this week. And then, of course, we have the Bank of England inflationary report. That's going to be big. We have retail sales in the U.S. That's big on Wednesday. Retail sales in New Zealand. That's going to be pretty big. Thursday is not quite as crazy. A little PPI and unemployment news from the U.S. And then on Friday, we've got a little bit of Canadian and U.S. news as well. So it's going to be a pretty big week as far as news goes. It tapers off a little bit, kind of Thursday, Friday. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is always typically a pretty good day of trading. We have some pretty good news in the works. Okay, so having said all of that, what are some of the things that we're looking at? I am not over my euro-dollar long, at least bias at this point. The euro-dollar has moved a bit. A couple of things to look at here. Remember, the euro-dollar's had this huge, massive, I changed this chart and it got rid of my fib levels, but it had this huge, massive rundown, right? We had this huge move from 140, the euro was at 140, all the way down to 104. I mean, just ridiculously massive. And then we saw the euro dollar make a run up and just cross that 23% fib and come back down again. My big trigger point on the euro dollar is I think the euro is going to head higher. I think we're going to see 115 probably, and maybe even 116 on euro dollar. Pretty much up around that 116, 117 area. I'm going to be looking for some long-term shorts. I'm going to be trading the euro probably back down to parity from there. But I think we've got a good chance of still running up into that. So our big support level, the big one that we're watching for and looking for right now, is 110.50. If 110.50 holds, then the euro should be able to stay and then continue that uptrend. If for some reason 110.50 goes, then that euro-dollar downtrend could be started sooner than expected. But that seems a little bit unlikely. I don't think we're ready to see any dollar movement yet. The fundamentals are definitely not supporting anything there. And Europe's on a little bit of a run right now. So one thing that's infamous with currency trends is markets just kind of move farther and longer than most people expect. And so the euro-dollar is probably going to be one of those examples where it runs a little bit higher than anybody's looking for before it starts to come back down. But it might also run a little bit lower here as well. We don't have anything really significant with my 200 moving average on the lower time frames. We're consolidating around the 200 moving average on the 1 hour chart, and the 4 hour chart's not really that far away. The daily chart, however, we were making a nice stab at that daily 200 moving average, and it's just missed and started to pull back down again. But once again, 110.50 is going to be our level to watch this week. If that level holds, here's our 110.50. There's some good support down here. We've got the 200 moving average, a monthly pivot, kind of all in that range. And so if those levels, if those indicators can hold at that level, then I'm going to be buying euro dollar like crazy off of 110.50. And targeting, another 400 or 500 pips or even more, 600 pips of movement higher. But 110.50 is going to be the one to watch. Now, as far as a little short-term activity, whenever we have consolidation at weekly highs or lows, those are always easy trades to look for. Right now, we've seen the euro dollar on the 1 hour chart totally consolidate around the 200 moving average on this 1 hour chart. So this is a great opportunity. If this thing breaks, it's in this little downward channel right here that's been going for only just a couple of days. Little downward channel seems to be pretty well supported on either side. If that channel holds at the top, like it looks like it's trying to do, then a little break of this 111.30 could probably give us anywhere from 30 to 50 pips of pretty easy movement downward. So if that channel holds right there and this 111.30 breaks, look for a little short-term trade, a little 30 to 50 pip trade down to the 1100 and potentially down a little bit closer to 110.50, like 110.70. should be a nice little target. So just watch that on euro dollar. If none of that happens, if it just doesn't dip down and it continues higher, then I'll probably be looking to get long euro dollar somewhere above 112. I think 112 will be a good spot to start adding buy positions to euro dollar. So ideally we'd like to buy anywhere between about 112 and 110.50, but if this 111.30 gives way, then we'll probably get that entry really close to 110.50. If this holds and we don't get a break of this weekly low right here, then we'll start adding about 50 pips higher to the euro dollar longs with about that 115 to 1600 target in mind. Okay, so that's what we're looking for on euro dollar. Should be great. Let me just say this about pound pairs in general. The pound has just become the UK, the Bank of England in particular, has just become a massive contender for possible earlier than expected rate hikes. We've talked about this all along, and the UK has been the only other one of the majors that we watch next to the US that could be raising rates. Nobody else is raising rates. Australia isn't, New Zealand isn't, Japan for sure isn't, Canada is not, and pretty much all the other major economies that we're watching aren't really raising rates. And so, except for Russia, they're raising rates like 12% each time, and that doesn't seem to be really doing much. And yes, Kevin, and that's where we're getting this big push on pound pairs, because there's now a major possibility that the UK could raise interest rates sooner than expected. They've kind of been on the sidelines like, nah, nothing's really going to happen. Everyone's just kind of in limbo mode. The US was kind of the only real contender for raising rates. But now the UK has entered the arena for raising rates as well. The US has pulled back a little bit. We've seen the US dollar kind of thinning out. Those dollar long trades have kind of all jumped ship. And now the pound has really been just going crazy against everybody. So again, with the pound being a nice contender for an interest rate hike, we're going to be looking for more buying opportunities on this one. On the short term, remember the pound dollar on the short term, like 15-minute chart, has run a good little distance. It might need to pull back a little bit. We might need to get that run back into the 200 moving average before it takes off and continues higher. Our big level right now, our pretty important level of support, is about 153.50. I doubt we're going to see it get down that far. What I'd like to see is a little bit of retracement, a little bit of a dip down. I'd like to see 155.00, somewhere in that general area, and I'm going to start buying this pound. Any kind of dips on the pound dollar, I'm going to be buying with a big target of, at this point, and it might be a little bit optimistic, but I think we have a pretty good chance of it. See this massive cluster of pivots right here? There's daily, weekly, and monthly pivots all kind of in one, and that's right at 160. That's my next target for pound dollar. I'm looking for about 116 on euro dollar, and I want to see about 160 on the pound dollar. And so that's the next spot that we're shooting for on this pair. So we want to buy any dips on pound dollar and target that 160. I think we've got a really good chance of getting there. It should be pretty exciting. So let's be ready for 160 to get hit. But yeah, basically we just want to buy any dips on pound dollar and start targeting that bigger movement. As far as the Australian dollar goes, I'm a little bit torn on where this thing looks like it might be trying to head. The Australian dollar doesn't have any major crazy fantastic thing happening. Now, Australia, during their last rate statement and everything, they cut interest rates another 1/4 point, but along with that, the rate statement was very kind of ominous of what was coming, but they did kind of bring up the fact that that future rate cuts, that basically this is kind of going to be the last major rate cut, at least in the very near future, and so that's put some good stank on the Aussie dollar. The Aussie dollar had bad employment numbers, and they cut interest rates, and it rallied on both news announcements. And so that being the case, we probably are leaning towards still being long Aussie dollar. One thing to remember here, though, is that is that we have this 23% fib level on the big drop that the Aussie dollar made from the high of 2014 to the low of 2015. We had that high up there, which was about 9500 area, and then it dropped all the way down into this 75. So a nice 2,000 pip run down. And it's been trying to kind of poke its way back up again, but it's having a hard time at that 23% fib, and that 23% fib is right at the 80 level. So I still, at this point, we had a nice breakout of this falling wedge. We've bounced against that 23% fib. I'm pretty anxious to buy some dips on this Aussie dollar as well. I think we're going to have some nice opportunities. So I'll be looking for opportunities to buy dips, and we'll also be looking for areas where we might be able to buy breakouts as well and continue trading this higher. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. You can see that the trend lines on the smaller charts just keep kind of narrowing in and zeroing in on that kind of breakout zone and a continuation higher. And yes, Mel and Kevin, yeah, China did have a rate cut, and that is going to take effect on the Aussie pair just a little bit. But Chinese news used to have a massive impact on the Australian dollar, and it's much less now for a whole bunch of reasons. But the important thing is to know that it is a lot less important towards the Australian dollar than it was before. So that's why we haven't seen really huge movements out of that. Normally we'd see the Aussie dollar move 100 pips in one direction or another with any kind of Chinese news. Better than expected, worse than expected. The Australian dollar was all over the place, and for about the last year it hasn't really reacted much to Chinese news. Okay, that's that. Quick little look at dollar CAD. So the dollar CAD are big levels here. We talked about this during the Monday webinar last week, and that was 119.40. If 119.40 breaks, we're selling the heck out of the dollar CAD, and we're continuing to trade this down through the 200 moving average down into all of these missed pivots down here, which there are countless missed pivots. We've had this huge run up. If we just kind of go from this last little range right here up into that high, you can see that it's touched the 38% fib a couple of times, but there's a very, very good possibility we could be making a run into that 50% fib, which takes us down. Our target below this has been 117.50. The 50% fib sits at about 117.20. So I'm still looking at that happening. We've got kind of an interesting little short-term situation on the dollar CAD. We have this little trend line right here. If you zoom it out a little bit, you can see that kind of better. It's been tested about 3 times. So if that trend line breaks, then we could have a nice little buying opportunity somewhere around this 121.50 area. Around 121.50 or just slightly above is where I would consider buying the dollar CAD. It's about 50 pips higher than current market price. However, on this little ascending trend line right here, it dipped down and has bounced around, and it broke that trend line. It retraced a whole bunch, but it hit that trend line right there and wasn't able to break back into that channel. It just tested that trend line, and then it's kind of dipped back down and been hopping all over the place. So again, if this does break above 121.50, then it will probably be a nice buying opportunity up into some of these nice bigger targets here. And this little double bottom is going to be holding, and we're going to look for this to get up into 12300 and beyond. But if this low right here, so again, broke out of this trend line, retested the trend line, and it seems to be kind of consolidating. If we break this 120.65, which is only about 35 pips away now, if that breaks, I'm going to be short dollar CAD down into 119.50 area. So you can see there's about 120 pips from the break of this weekly low down into the big double bottom right there. So remember, a break of this trend line right here, basically we want to be long above 121.50, or we want to be short below 120.65. And we're basically looking for just a little over 100 pips on either side of movement there. So just keep that in mind. That's going to be a nice little mover. Here's one that we've talked about for a couple of weeks, the dollar yen, and it just doesn't seem to want to do anything in either direction. Dollar yen is now going into 5 or 6 weeks of just total choppy sideways movement. We're continuing to watch 118.50 on the sell side, and we're watching 120.30 area on the buy side. And the dollar yen is just stuck. It's totally stuck. So as soon as we can start making some clearance of that 120.30 area, we made a little stab at it last week with some of the news, but then it just turned around and came right back down. It's back inside that channel again. Getting back up above that should be pretty significant and will hopefully start this move higher. But ultimately, I'm still looking for a possibility of dollar yen reaching 118.50 and breaking 118.50. So we'll just see how it goes. Above this 120.30/50-ish area is going to be a good spot to start looking for buying opportunities, and below that 118.50 is going to be great to look for those shorts. So it should be fantastically amazing. Okay, so just a quick little move over to these guys real quick. Gold is a choppy mess. Just stay out of gold. If you're in gold, close your trades as soon as possible. Get out at break even. Take a small loss. Just get out of gold and stay out of gold for a couple of days. We need to get some clarity on what gold's doing, and I know some people who trade gold might have some great levels that they're looking for and some feels for it, but just be really, really careful. Gold's going into a month and a half of total sideways movement, and this is risky. If you're on the right side of the breakout, it's super awesome. If you're on the wrong side, it's horribly painful. So just be so careful with gold. Stay away from this one for a little while. Let's let it clear out and give us some nice movements and hopefully get going from there. New Zealand dollar. Who remembers New Zealand dollar from the last Monday webinar? Talked about shorting the break of 7,500. Here we are, 73.40, so it's moved down nicely. It was a choppy break. That 7,500 was crazy. It broke, pulled back up, came back down again, hopped around, and then it really started to move. New Zealand dollar, I still like 72.50. We have a missed daily pivot at 72.70, and then we have this nice little double bottom down here at about 71.80, 75.85 area. And so I'm looking for a minimum target of that missed pivot, which is 72.70, but I think we can get a nice little run down into that 72.50. New Zealand is on the opposite spectrum here. The pound has moved up like crazy on possibilities of rate hikes, and New Zealand dollar has been chatting and talking, and the central bank in New Zealand has been talking about how high the exchange rate is, and kind of just trying to get some free mileage out of talk before they had to actually start doing anything. But now it looks like a rate cut is pretty serious and is probably coming for New Zealand. So this will probably just keep on moving down. So this makes one of the most appealing trades would be pound New Zealand long. But the pound New Zealand has run a pretty long distance already. Pound New Zealand's gone crazy. We've got my indicators going pretty nuts here. You can see it's at about 1,000 pips. It's right at its previous max pips. And it's getting a little risky to buy right now. So we want to look for any opportunities to buy the dip on pound New Zealand, but we don't want to be buying up from where we are. It's probably ready for a little bit of a turnaround. It's gone basically straight up for a week or so. So any buys of the dips would be pretty fantastic for pound New Zealand, because I think this pair is just going to continue, straight on up. And so we want to be looking for any of those buy opportunities. Buy pound yen on dips, buy pound New Zealand on dips, pound CAD on dips, pound dollar dips. Just we're looking to be long pound this week, but we need to see all of these pound pairs pull back a little bit. Probably one of our easier entries is going to be pound dollar. If the pound dollar dips anywhere from 50 to 100 pips, I'll just be buying into that and looking to trade that higher. We need a little bit more retracement on some of these other pound pairs to make it safe, particularly pound New Zealand, which has just gone crazy like the rest of the pound pairs at the start of the week. But basically we want to be short New Zealand, long pound this week. And for the most part, we're going to want to be short US dollar this week, unless some of these levels that we've talked about, collapse and don't hold. Some of those levels to remember, once again, euro dollar, we're really looking for 110.50 to be the big holding level. If 110.50 holds, we're long euro dollar, hopefully into the 115, 116 area. Short-term one to watch for is 111.30. A break below that, give us a quick little sell trade, and hopefully a nice opportunity to buy down closer to that 110.50. Anything below 110.50, we want to be changing our tune and looking to get short euro dollar. Pound dollar, I'd like to see this get a little bit down closer to 155 or even below 155, and we'll buy this thing with a target of 160. And I think 160 is a great area to aim for on this pound dollar. If this starts making a significant move below 153.50, then this could be changing its tune as well. But I very, very doubt that we're going to see any of that happening. So a little bit of retracement on pound dollar will be excellent. Aussie dollar, we're just kind of in holding pattern on this one, remember. But it's struggling at the 23% fib. Hopefully it'll be able to break above that and we can start targeting some of these bigger levels like 8,300 on Aussie dollar. Dollar CAD, watch the break of the weekly low, 120.65. We want to short dollar CAD below 120.65, or we want to be long dollar CAD above 121.50. Pretty cut and dry there. We're still watching 118.50 on dollar yen and 120.30/120.50 on the upper side. Looking for 72.50 on New Zealand dollar, and possibly even below. And then we're just looking for opportunities of, we need to see some retracement, like 100 pips plus on pound Aussie, pound New Zealand, pound yen, and then we want to buy those puppies and just trade them on up for a good chunk of pips. So it should be very excellent, very exciting. And we'll just take it from there. Remember, for those that were able to purchase the Trade Manager in the early special, the Trade Manager first training webinar will be tomorrow morning just after our live session. I'll send out an email with the link and all the specifics there for those that purchased it. And we'll see you there. Thanks, everybody. Great to have you all with us. Make some fantastic pips this week. We've got some great setups to trade. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll be here for just a couple more minutes.